Appreciate everybody coming here today. We've kind of got a mic set up there, so if you want to speak, come to either side, and then, like I said, say who you are, and kind of your position, and give a quick summary of your position and what you'd like us to hear. This is an act relating to restrictions on the acquisition of real property by the Department of Natural Resources. So, who would like to start? Could you come up here?
Oh, sure. Sitting here, is this one? All right, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Kevin Keel with the Iowa Farm Bureau. We're supportive of the bill. Our farmers, landowners have concerns about the state competing against them to acquire land, using government dollars to compete against private citizens is the concern. There's been instances in the past where this has happened, appreciate the conversation. It's our understanding from previous conversations on this topic that this bill is simply codifying existing DNR practice. So it doesn't change anything that's happening right now. It codifies it so that the practices of today continue into the future, so that the government is not competing against private landowners to purchase land. I'm here today with my colleague Matt Gronwald. I don't want to be rude, but I do have another subcommittee to attend at 1:45, so I might sneak out the back door, but looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Go ahead, sir.
I usually don't read off the paper, don't feel. So my name is Rod Marlad. I am the director of the Fayette County Conservation Board, but I'm also the president of our Pheasants Forever chapter, chair of the Turkey River Watershed Management Authority, chair of the Turkey River Recreational Corridor, chair of the River Bluff Scenic Byway, chair of the Byway Auto Foundation. I also serve as board member of the Agricultural Coalition and Assistant Soil and Water District Commission. So I don't relay that to you, except for one overriding reason. All these entities share a vision and mission, and all of these have public land and recreation in their toolboxes. These reasons for support include flood mitigation, general soil and water conservation, arts and culture, tourism, and associated economic development that our public lands create and help retain, especially in rural Iowa. Economic development professionals always say that quality of life and public recreation opportunities are the top reason for visitors to come to Iowa and subsequently move to our state. The trend is today's visitors are tomorrow's residents. I'm from Northeast Iowa, and I can assure you that's the case. Beyond that, our public lands also retain residents, both young and older. I, for example, have a brother who is in the process of building a home and moving to Appaloosa County for one reason: availability of public recreational land. I'll switch gears a little bit. This bill seems benign to those defending it as just prohibiting the DNR from acquiring land purchased at auction. But it appears there is language in it stating something about prohibitions relating to other types of competitive offers, and I ask you, what is that? From the agricultural standpoint, or the idea that public land acquisition is inhibiting farmers and younger farmers and producers and keeping them out of the field, I wonder why we're not seeing bills that would stop or slow down urban sprawl, both residential and commercial. These expansions are generally high production areas with top CSR ratings, and this trend is far more damaging to the opportunities for younger producers in expanding our public lands by any means of acquisition. Finally, I think what is being overlooked here and reflects short-term considerations is the fact that these types of bills and legislation cripple, impede, and possibly prohibit future generations from adding to the public recreation, quality of life, and economic vitality of Iowa. Who are we to assume that our future generations need to be or want to be restricted from public recreation expansion by passing legislation that will affect them from pursuing these desires in the future. Thank you. Obviously, I oppose this bill.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to be next?
Hi, sorry. I'm Amy Buckendall. But who I am really isn't that important, is what I represent. So I grew up in northeastern Iowa. My family immigrated from Germany 100 years ago to farm. I come from an agricultural community in rural Iowa. I grew up having access to farms and places where I could enjoy and creek stomp. But then I went away to college, and I learned that there were so many more people who didn't have those same experiences that I did growing up. And without a really great feasible way for state agencies, not just the DNR, but other agencies to acquire property as they see fit, working with landowners willing to sell it. I think that's really the key thing. I totally appreciate that Farm Bureau is saying that, hey, this is just something that codifies what's already in practice. However, what that does, it may codify things with the DNR, but then it changes how I, as a landowner, can then interact with the DNR, and perhaps even changes down the road that this might bring in. So my concern is that if this rule passes, or this bill passes and goes further, that I, as a landowner and as a person growing up in rural Iowa, this will change how I'm able to use my land in perpetuity if I want it to be available for future generations. So kids, so young kids and girls like me, when I was little, are able to have the same opportunities. So thank you, and please consider that.
Thank you. Would like to be next?
Gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Graham Chapman, State Director of the Nature Conservancy in Iowa, coincidentally was here. I live in the Sioux City area. Was here with the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce this morning. Coincidentally on this same day. That visit was planned weeks ago, but saw Representative Skolton this morning and had the opportunity to bring this up with leadership. We're opposed to the bill. Prior to being in this role, I was the Los Hills Project Director for the Nature Conservancy in Iowa. I have had the good fortune, or the misfortune at the time, to be at an auction and to see myself outbid, going for some beautiful Los Hills prairie ground as a 501c3 organization, being limited to not go above the appraised value of the property. So, I mean, that's a long way of saying we're kind of easy to beat in a competitive. But I do bring up a point, or a point that's been made previously, that this bill goes beyond looking at land at auction as written, and leaves us scratching our head into what is considered a competitive negotiation with a private landowner, because the majority of landowners that reach out to us and have an interest in seeing their property being recreation and wildlife habitat beyond their ownership, reach out with that intent. And so as written, the bill brings up concerns about what that does to those negotiations and those conversations as well. But I come back to the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce that gave me the opportunity to speak about this in their agenda, because they see this bill as something that could impact the quality of life of communities like ours and countless others around the state, as it would limit opportunities to create or expand places like Stone State Park in northwest Iowa and countless others around the state. So we stand in opposition to this bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Well, there we go. This side of the room is feeling.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Gray. I'm with the Iowa National Heritage Foundation. We are also registered against this bill. There are some serious concerns around the language of what is a competitive manner. And in our economy that we all enjoy, competition is at the very essence of our free market economy. So we echo those concerns as well. But more broadly than that, we have very serious concerns about any bills that would restrict our ability to grow our parks, trails, and wildlife areas, because those have significant public benefit. These are projects not competing against taxpayers, but actually being created for taxpayers and for Iowans. And so we know that these are places that Iowans enjoy, that Iowans want more of, and not just from what we learn in studies and surveys, but because we all enjoy it when we go outside. We see the benefits to our physical and mental health we see the economic opportunity within our communities. And so I encourage you to think about that as you consider not just this bill, but any bills that would place unnecessary restrictions. I also add, we are sensitive to the fact that there are other appropriate land uses in Iowa. We do not believe that a majority of Iowa is suitable to be a park, trail, or wildlife area. But there are some that are, and we know those when we see them. And so I ask, when those opportunities arise, those benefits that those areas can provide exist regardless of how the landowner or landowners choose to divest of their property. And so please carefully consider how restrictions on developing parks, trails, and wildlife areas restricts our opportunities to grow our state and grow our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Okay, I didn't, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, representatives. I guess this is on, correct?
Yep.
My name's Randy McFerrin. I'm a board member with Iowa Bowhunter Association. Longtime farmer around Mountains now. The IBA is definitely against this bill, logically. With only 1 to 2% public land in the state, I feel strongly that this could affect people's sanity, to make it simple and clear. So I'll reiterate Anna Gray's message with the Natural Heritage Foundation. She's spot on, right on, so we appreciate your consideration. Have a great day.
Thank you. No, this.
Hi, my name is Alicia Baxto, and I am the Water Program Director with the Iowa Environmental Council. We are registered opposed to this bill, as we have been every year for the last few years that it has been introduced. I think that every time something like this comes up, we see Iowans turn out and tell the legislature that their priorities lie with conservation. This bill is a solution in search of a problem. In all of the years that we've had bills like this introduced that have tried to restrict public land access in parks and trails, I've heard of one situation where a young farmer was outbid for a piece of property. That is just not something that is happening. And really, this bill's only purpose is to limit parks and trails here in our state. And time again, we've said that Iowans care about these things. We want to see that grow within our state. And I think that codifying what is current policy is not wise. Policies change, priorities change, and so we shouldn't be creating that barrier for the future. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Amber Markham. I'm with the Nature Conservancy in Iowa, and we oppose this bill. We oppose it because it eliminates the DNR as a competitive bidder on any land. Based on the subcommittee hearing yesterday, I heard that beginning farmers / cattle producer in particular see conservation buyers like the DNR or PNC as direct competition to their ability to graze land. I would argue just the opposite, that conservation buyers are cattlemen's strongest allies, in that conservation buyer is ensuring that there are grasslands and wild spaces still available to graze for years to come. You see, this bill only stops the DNR from competing in an auction for land. It doesn't stop a real estate developer from buying land or putting a mini wall or a housing development up. Once urban sprawl happens, you can never go back. There will be no more wild spaces or grazing land. In fact, those types of neighbors will end cattle production not only on that land, but anywhere near that housing development or shopping center. A conservation buyer like the DNR or PNC, on the other hand, are good neighbors who work directly with cattle producers to graze their land. Both the DNR and PNC have cattle grazing programs. We work with local farmers to lease our land for grazing. For a beginning farmer, leasing a property for grazing is much more financially doable compared to putting down a payment on a piece of property to own. Farmers are no strangers to leasing land for production, as is a very common model followed in row crop agriculture. The conservation community and a community can work together to find mutually beneficial solutions that accomplish both of our goals. This bill pits us against each other, and no one wins. I have with me today some of our staff that run our grazing program here in Iowa. So after this subcommittee hearing, if any of you are interested in learning more about how we work with our cattlemen and grazers on our land, they'd be happy to talk to you.
Thank you. There was something to get there.
conservation organizations, many of them are here in the room today, about 60,000 hunters, anglers, and trappers around the state. I'm also a Soil and Water Conservation District Commissioner, and I sit on 2 different watershed boards. And we're opposed to this bill because of the vagueness of the language. So you say competitive process, does that mean if it's listed with a realty company, they can't even go talk to them because if they make a bid, somebody else may make a bid? You know, and the whole economic system we live under is a competitive process. So how can we say that they can't compete? I looked in the Secretary of Agriculture's website. There's 122,000 registered farmers and farm operators in the state of Iowa. And there's over 3 million people. That means they represent less than 4% of the people in the state. We have 1.07 was the last percentage I knew of public land. So that means 4% of the people are controlling 98.7% of the land. And that isn't enough. And I was that young farmer trying to start 40 years ago, and I won't go through that big long story that I told back when we did House File 542, but the only thing that keeps the young farmer from getting started and the small farmer from getting bigger is the big farmer that's got more money, because he'll pay more money for that land than it can ever produce farmland. And that's the only thing. And why should such a small percentage of the people shut out such a large percentage of the people? It just isn't right. And quite frankly, I object not only to the bill, but the spirit of the bill, because I've been here every year since House File 542, and that's about 7 years ago, and every year there's some version of this bill. And we call all these people in here to show how opposed they are to it and how they support public land, and then every year we have to do it over and over. Think of all the wasted time and the wasted fuel to come here to do the same thing over and over and over again. Thank you for your opportunity to speak.
Thanks, sir.
Eric Rector, Wright County. I'm the director of the Conservation Board, but I took the day off today to come down as a Joe citizen. I'm here to voice my concerns regarding the proposed legislation of House File 2104 and to support the DNR and the NGOs that acquire and protect the land for the public to use, and to stand up for the 400,000 people that buy hunting and fishing licenses and trapping licenses. Those are the folks that fund the Fish and Game Division of the DNR. It's not taxpayer dollars. I have 3 things. The Fish and Wildlife Divisions are not funded with taxpayer dollars. They are voluntarily purchased, those licenses are, to be able to participate in the sport of hunting, fishing, and trapping. So vis-a-vis, the DNR works for the outdoors person, indirectly. Most hunters did not win the genetic lottery. We don't have land that we can go hunt on that's family owned. We have to rely on public lands. And quite frankly, there's not enough of that. I have heard it said over and over again that young farmers are competing against government entities to acquire land. I ask you, am I not competing against my own tax-paid dollars if I, as a private citizen, try to acquire land at a public auction and am bidding against a young farmer that receives taxpayer-funded, low-interest loans, the likes of which I cannot receive? Am I competing against my own tax dollars? Am I competing against my own tax dollars that have been paid in the form of subsidies to established farmers? If they are trying to acquire land that I might be interested in, who is really competing here for tax dollars or against tax dollars? My last statement, if you choose to move this legislation forward, which I think you probably will you amend the legislation so that I, as a taxpayer, will not be competing against a bidder that receives real tax dollars in the form of subsidized loans or subsidies in general? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would you like to comment?
Very briefly, my name is Mike Delaney, I'm Conservation Director of the Eisenwald League. Many of you know the Eisenwald League have been fighting for public land for 100 years. Boundary waters, upper Mississippi River, habitat area. And, you know, in the state of Iowa, over and over again, we're at the table, trying to protect the best pieces of land we have in terms of habitat and ecological diversity. We're a broad group of hunters and fishers. We're part of Fred Long's Iowa Conservation Alliance. I support everything that Fred had to say to you today. So, I've got 60 acres on the Raccoon. I'm doing everything I can to conserve that property and its wildlife. So I hope the state of Iowa can do a little more than we have in the past to protect the high quality ecosystem that we have. Now, I know there's complaints about some of the property owned by the DNR. It's hard to keep up with honeysuckle, let me tell you. It's a full-time job for me and I'm getting a little old for it on my property. But the answer to that, I think, is increased funding for the DNR to do that kind of work that needs to be done. Thanks for the time, appreciate it.
Thanks, sir. As a quick point of information, none of us introduced the bill. We were assigned it in the Natural Resources Committee and tasked with the goal of having a subcommittee. So let's- we had a project open the door. So, who would like to go next? Thank you. You're on.
My name is Jean Spencer, and my husband is Selden Spencer. We're from Huxley, Iowa, and Story County. We're also small farm owners in Hamilton County. So I come here on two fronts. One is as a landowner, and I find the prospect that I could not sell my land in the future to the most competitive bidder, should it be someone other than a farmer, such as the DNR. They would be, that would limit my ability to profit from my land, should I choose to do that. I understand, I believe I'm correct when I say we could donate the land, but not everybody's going to profit. And I think you do a disservice to people who want to sell their land in the future. We also are very much behind conservation efforts. We do have a creek that runs through one of our properties, and there's runoff, erosion issues. We have a lot of tile that empties into our land, and I think doing things to protect the waterways and the soil health long-term requires somebody to take an interest in it. And I think agencies such as the DNR, that is their mission. So I did want to, I think everybody's pretty much said most of the things I had to say, but I did want to remind people that there was something in 2010 called the Iowa Outdoor Recreation Fund Amendment, also known as Amendment 1. It was on the November 2nd, 2010 ballot in the state of Iowa as a legislatively referred constitutional amendment where it was approved by 63% of the Iowa voters. So almost 2/3 of Iowans voted for this fund. The fund was set up to establish permanent revenue for natural resources and outdoor recreational programs in the state. It's never been funded, it's never been enacted. Iowans told you in 2010, 2/3 of Iowans, almost 63%, that they want more public land. I did look on the internet. Iowa is tied at 47 and 48 with Nebraska for the amount of public land at 2.8%. The state that's halfway, 25th, is Vermont with 15.8%. Alaska has a lot. But my point is, we're woefully lacking in public land. And that if you enact this bill, it just adds another slap in the face to Iowans who want this, because they told you that with their vote in 2010. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Phil Jenner with the Iowa Sportsman's Club, and we are pressure opposed to the bill. One of the things that the Sportsman's Club, one of our big priorities is access for our hunters. And as the lady just stated, you know, Iowa is near the bottom in the amount of public land that is available. And every probably fishing. So I think that the competitive manner language in the bill is, is something that probably needs to be looked at. And I do want to say too that, from our hunters' perspective, we love farmers because that's probably most of where we get our access. And to the argument that the DNR is bidding out young hunters or young farmers, I would say that that's probably more amongst other farmers. I mean, the record for the highest amount per acre was set in my own home county, in Plymouth County, several years ago, about $25,000 or $26,000 an acre that sold for. So it's not the DNR buying that; it's other farmers doing that. So I would just say we have an issue in the state in terms of access to public lands, and for our hunters that do bring quite a few dollars into the state. So I would urge you to look at this bill, see if it can't be cleaned up, cleared up, to protect our public lands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Hansen. I'm from Huxley, up in Story County. And unlike many of the guys and gals in this room, I'm here as a citizen. I participate in a lot of nonprofits, outdoors, those types of things. But my concern is my three boys. We love the bike trails. We love the parks. We love the lakes. We love all those things. And by what this bill does is it limits our ability to get out to that. All of us have seen the landscape change. Grew up in north central Iowa, moved to Des Moines for college, and have stuck around. But seeing that landscape change on many facets is what's scary. And seeing 4% of the population, one lobbyist that couldn't even stay the whole time because it must not have been important enough to stay, like the other guys and gals in this room. We're all here to support public land and public access in the state. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Nan Buckhart. I'm a private citizen and an affiliate, recently retired from a long career in natural resources, not in the state of Iowa, but I've come to Iowa because I know of those secret little places that are gems that are threatened by encroachment, by urbanization, by industrialization, by agriculture. And those secret places help to give us the things that humans and wildlife need to survive. They clean our air, they clean our water, they take care of pesticides and herbicides, they sequester carbon, and they make it so that people have a place to go to rejuvenate their body, their mind, their emotions, and their overall health. And limiting the ability to have these spaces for people in the future is a horrible, horrible mistake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Steinman. I'm the Iowa State Coordinator for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever here in the state. And I'm proud to share with all of you that the majority of, let me back up here, sorry, that Pheasants Forever, the largest contingent of our membership in the whole country, is right here in the state of Iowa, over 20,000 members. Additionally, we have the most chapters in Iowa of anywhere else in the whole country, with almost a chapter in every single county. I agree with we're opposed to this legislation, and I agree with a lot of other opposition and the comments associated there. I think that the best explanation for what I can provide as to why we're opposed to this legislation is that PF and QF supporters across the state, along with the majority of citizens in the state of Iowa, helped push forward I-Will in 2010 with the goal that that piece of legislation was intended for us to all benefit from more conservation funding, improved outdoor recreational opportunities, more wildlife habitat, and improved water quality. This piece of legislation not only doesn't bring us any closer to any of those goals, it actually pulls us backwards from where we currently are. So for that reason, we are opposed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
So my name is Neil Hamilton. I retired law professor at Drake, founded the Agricultural Law Center, also served as a Dallas County Soil and Water Conservation Commissioner. I taught legislation for 25 years, and there's at least 2 points I'd make about legislation. One, if you write it, you need to understand what it actually means, and the provision about the other competitive manner is certainly a little vague. I don't imagine that as legislators you want to delegate the understanding of it to the courts to have them interpret it as opposed to provide it. Secondly, if you have a problem that you're trying to address, you can address it. If your concern is helping new and beginning farmers access land, there are any number of ways that you could do that. Tax breaks for existing landowners, additional funding for new and beginning farmer programs. But another point that I'd like to make, that maybe has got lost in the shuffle, is that this bill is inherently an anti-private property rights bill. Now, yesterday in the Senate, we heard a senator say that anybody who wants to sell their land to the DNR can. That doesn't restrict that. But there are some circumstances in which people may have to sell their land at auction. An estate settlement, the resolution of a partition fight between joint tenants, which would require it to be at auction. And the premise of the idea that if you can take some people out of the auction, the property is going to sell for less, well, the flip side of that is that the seller is going to receive less for it. And so it's ironic that an organization that I believe says it supports private property rights would in fact be promoting a bill that in many ways restricts at least one element of the ownership of private property, which is if it has to be sold at an auction, you would have the opportunity to have a broad array of people acquiring it. Beyond that, I should also say, I oppose the legislation, but I believe as legislators, there are certainly things that you can do to address the more fundamental issue if it's a concern about access to land. This bill has nothing to do with protecting the rights of new and beginning farmers to access land. It's an anti-public, anti-social bill designed to limit Iowans' ability to acquire more public land, which is something that every economic development official, including the head of your own agency, would tell you is one of the most important things a state can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Is that the last burning desire? Okay. You didn't need the one, yeah?
Well, I guess what I have to say is, I hope you guys don't feel like your time is wasted, because I already felt like I wanted to be against this bill. But all your comments just made me feel very good that I had felt that way in the first place. So I want to thank all of you for coming. So that's my position on the bill. I know we're not voting yet, but I just thought I'd put that out there. I've got a picture of a really nice deer that I got. So anyway, thank you for coming.
First of all, I appreciate everybody's passion on this matter, and I'm not the only one, but I probably got more emails than letters that are in the words of this bill, and 0 were in favor of the bill. So I think it's what this. Thank you. I think one of the big things about the things that I'm passionate about is competition in our economy, and I think we are far too monopolized in this country at this time, and adding more competition I think is good. The quality of life is extremely important, and specifically about, several folks mentioned Stone State Park, which is in my district, and I want to make sure we protect that as well.
I'd like to make a few points. First off, I fully understand some of the intent of the law, or the bill, not law. When I'm not here, I wear a sequin cap, and I have a young son, so, you know, trying to expand is an issue for me. But as you can see, I don't have a sequin cap on right now. So, and, if I misstep here, Professor, we need to straighten out. I do think there are, one of the comments, or the first comments, this was a codified policy already taken by the DNR. In present, in the first line, the department shall not means never ever, shall you. I believe with present policy, they could make exemptions to that, buying purchase land from auction if it was necessary for a project. Am I correct?
Case by case situation.
Yes, case by case. So there's no exemption there, so that doesn't follow present code, or present policy. And then, it just, goes after the DNR, or mentions the DNR. My comment then would be, what about our county conservation districts? They take land out of production, make parks if that's the interest. They're not part of this, and plus, you know, our cities and things like that. So, we're only concerned about one entity purchasing land that might conflict with, issues. So that's part of the places where I see, issues with the bill. Plus, like it's been mentioned, auction, and how it defines it, I think that can get ugly. I mean, like it was brought up, if you come to me and I make an offer and you go to my neighbor or the realtor and he ups it and comes back, in essence, are we having an auction? So that was a concern, and which, like I said, could be hard to make do. So then the next question I come to, or not come to, or what part of the thought process is, well, why don't we amend it then? And like I said, the professor kind of took my thunder, because after all the comments here, I landed on private property rights also. That's the foundation of our Constitution. What makes America what it is that ability for us all to buy land. And I had checked in code. Kind of one of the questions was, do we restrict anywhere else in code somebody from buying land? And there is a piece in, like the piece about foreign ownership and corporate land ownership, but a lot of that is, that's kind of where it's mentioned. But then I did a little more checking here on it. So how would the code define a person? So that's we're kind of distinguishing who shall and shall not. But under code, it says, unless otherwise provided by law, person means individual, corporation, limited liability company, government or government subdivision, or agency, business, trust, estate, trust, partnership, association, or any other legal entity. So I think by code, I don't think it'd be, in my understanding, I don't think it's fair that we separate one department out and that restricts other people from doing it. So I'm going to agree with my colleagues that we won't pass it out, and at this time it would be considered dead.